The 2020 Bahrain Grand Prix is going to be remembered mainly for that horrendous crash for Romain Grosjean. Thankfully, he walked away. Let's have a look at how it started. So this crash all seems to come about as a result of a chain reaction from events much further up the field. The first car we're going to go on board with is McLaren's Lando Norris. Starting in the top 10, gets a good start, goes on the inside of Esteban Ocon, and has a nice run of it down to turn 1. But then it gets really, really tight for Norris. It's really tight ahead with Valtteri Bottas losing places with Albon on his inside, Ricciardo on the outside. And now Norris is in his own pincer here. And if I pause it into turn 2, you just see Esteban Ocon's chucked the Renault up the inside of Norris. Norris has had a slight touch with Pierre Gasly on the outside. He's damaged his front wing and he has to slow a lot for Ocon and Gasly both pincering from either side. So that's the first part of the chain reaction. Then we switch on board to Sebastian Vettel. Vettel accelerates away from the line, and here, if I pause it on the way down, you can see Gasly, Norris and Ocon all coming down towards turn 1, in 3 abreast pretty much. Vettel's then got his own pincer situation going on with Leclerc and Lance Stroll on the outside, but look, suddenly if I pause it there, he's locked up. The left front absolutely locked up because Norris has braked suddenly. So Norris is slowed up, Vettel's not expecting it, he's had to hammer on the brakes. Normally you'd be accelerating through turn 2. It's kind of, you'd have to be feathering the throttle, balancing it, but you'd never be on the brakes for turn 2. But Vettel is on the brakes, he has a little touch with Norris and then Stroll on the outside, just a slight touch as well. And Stroll goes off wide right, gets a very poor run onto the next straight. So does Vettel, having hit the brakes for turn 2. And if we go on board with Carlos Sainz, you can see this incident a little bit better as well. Sainz minding his own business on the soft tyres to start. And then look, Vettel locked up, runs wide into Stroll. Sainz then comes through, but they all get such slow runs out. And you can see Antonio Giovinazzi getting a better run around the outside, showing what Formula 1 car speed kind of should be at that point. So that's all bunched up, and it's all started from that 3-way collision with Ocon, Norris, Gasly coming into turn 2. It's bunched up the pack behind. Then we flick to Romain Grosjean's on board here. So this is really where the accident ultimately is going to happen then. Grosjean coming through turn 1, and it's normal. He goes up the inside of Daniel Kvyat, and then if I pause it here now, you can see what's happening. You've got Sainz going slowly from his position of having to wait behind Vettel and Stroll. You've got Vettel going slowly, having touched Stroll and losing loads of ground. You've got Raikkonen just ahead on the left, but he's got such momentum that he thinks he's going to go around the outside of Sainz, who's obviously slow from that moment as well. So Raikkonen goes off wide, but immediately gets no grip. It's really dusty, and he's having a huge oversteer moment. So he's off wide left. Now, Magnussen, Grosjean's teammate ahead to the right, he's actually got quite a nice line here. He's got the momentum, and he's going to have a look at coming past all these cars that have been so bunched up through turn 2. You can see all this unfolding. You've got Raikkonen kicking up dust. He's going to be out of the equation here, but he may be rejoining onto the track somewhere near where Grosjean is ultimately. And Grosjean sees all this unfolding and he's turning to the right. He's actually placed right on the left-hand side of the track, but you can see already coming through the right-hander at turn 3, he just never releases the steering and he's going to come right across the track. And he wants actually to go to the inside of his teammate now, Kevin Magnussen, who's got the nice line. And he just comes across and then bam, gets the touch from Daniel Kvyat. So then we switch on board to Kvyat and see how this looks from his point of view. You can see Grosjean on the left has just come through at turn 2, had the inside line. And Magnussen then, with the nice clearer run through up towards turn 4, Kvyat's also got a nice run. He's on the inside, he's got a nice clear track ahead of him, and he's also steering slightly right to avoid all the slower cars which are bunched to the left-hand side. Grosjean then, look at the angle which he comes across, is really, really sharp. He must not know that Kvyat's there, basically. He comes across really aggressively. Kvyat tries to avoid him, tries to turn more right, but it's just not avoidable in this situation. You don't expect a driver to go from the left all the way to the right that quickly at the end of just the first combination of corners, and ultimately he tripped over a car that was already there. Final shot on board is with George Russell in the Williams. He has a good view of it. If I pause it there, you can just see Kvyat's now keeping to the right at the exit of turn 3. Grosjean's on the left. So it's possible at this point that Kvyat's actually in the blind spot for Grosjean's mirrors. The mirrors don't look out wide too well. They look kind of behind the driver and slightly off from the rear wing. But really out wide, there is a bit of a blind spot. And it's possible that Grosjean just didn't see that Kvyat was there. So there were a number of factors that led to this. The car's going slowly ahead, maybe a blind spot in the mirrors, but the blame game is irrelevant in this situation. As soon as you see a driver have the impact that Grosjean has, pointing the finger at anyone becomes a moot point, really. And all the attention becomes making sure that the guy's okay. And actually, Kvyat said initially he was frustrated at Grosjean's driving, and then he saw the size of the impact and he thought, well, forget it. It's not about the driving anymore. It's about a guy now fighting for his life. We take it back from this camera, looking up from turn 4. You can see all the cars coming through. Raikkonen's off to the outside, and then Grosjean and Kvyat spear to the inside. And Grosjean goes through the Armco barrier. Extraction is so important in Formula One. It's one of the many safety checks that happen at the start of the year. Every year the cars are new, and the drivers have to make sure with an FIA safety delegate there, that they can get out the car. It used to be 5 seconds. Now it's 7 seconds because the halo was introduced and the times are slightly longer. In the test, you actually have to put the steering wheel back on in another 5 seconds. I never quite understand the point of that, because in any instance where you want to get out of the car in 5 or 7 seconds, you're not going to be bothered about putting the wheel back on. But that's the test. And it's done in pre-season, Barcelona typically, and you're in the garage, you do it in your own time. If you fail the test, you can do it again and just keep going until you pass. But it is a way of the FIA knowing that in a bad situation, you can get out the car. It's very rare that any driver has to get out of the car that quickly. I've had a couple of scenarios myself where I've been in a car that's on fire, and it's normally, well, for me, it's always been from an engine issue in the back, and you're in control of the situation at this point. You can pull over, try and find a marshal's post, but even if the car's on fire quickly, you just pull over as soon as possible, you jump out, you're the right way around, you're not disorientated. It's a bit scary because there's a fire, you're getting hot from the back, but ultimately you're in relative control of the situation. For Grosjean here, it's so different. He's just had a 53G impact at 140 mile an hour. That would knock the wind out of you in any situation. For a human being to go through those forces. Then you've got an explosion of fire, so suddenly there's fire all around him. And you've got resting Armco on top of the halo as well. And no wonder it took him more than the mandated 7 seconds to get out of this car. It took him up to 30 seconds. But how he got out in the end was incredible. With his own power, basically, getting out of the car. Absolute testament to the strength of Formula One cars now. The halo did its job. No question about it, really. Even piercing the Armco barrier. I was one of those drivers, I confess, that wasn't very keen on the halo when it came in. I have to say I'm very thankful that we got it on Formula One cars now. The other thing that is being talked about is the fireproof overalls, which have clearly done a fantastic job as well. We've seen very few incidents recently where Formula One cars are risking burns, really, because generally when there is a fire, it's from the engine, and as I said, the drivers can pull to a stop and get out of the car as quickly as possible. We heard Nico Hülkenberg a few years ago getting flipped in Abu Dhabi and being trapped in the car upside down. Very panicked at the thought of a fire breaking out, but the marshals were on the scene very quickly. And the marshals were on the scene pretty quickly as well, helped by the FIA medical delegates. Dr. Ian Roberts and Alan van der Merwe on the scene very quickly. But 30 seconds is still a lot of time, and huge credit goes to the overall manufacturers, Alpine Stars in Grosjean's case, but there's many different ones that follow a tough safety homologation process at the start of the year. Actually, this year, the fireproof wear is even better than it's ever been. The suits are a bit heavier, the drivers don't initially like that, but when you see an incident like this, you kind of think it's all worthwhile, and actually some good foresight on the ever-improving safety of Formula One. Incredible that he walked away from it. For the other 19 drivers, quite a tough moment as well. The race is red flagged, and as you're approaching turn 9, you can kind of have a glimpse at the first few corners, and as all the drivers were approaching it, when the race is red flagged, it's neutralised, they're all coming back in the pits, you can still see a burning wreckage. And every single driver was on the radio asking if the driver involved in the crash, they didn't know, most of them didn't know who it was at the time, was okay. And there was a moment where even the teams didn't know if he was okay, and we didn't know. Thankfully he was, but for all the drivers, the rest of the drivers, it's quite a tough situation. The red flag's out, they come back in the pits, they see the replay of this accident, and it's a huge accident. To take that in as a driver, knowing that you're about to go back out to the same track, is quite difficult. In the end, the race got restarted, and normally in this situation, you put the helmet on, you put the visor down. There was so much to sort out. Even the starting grid needed to be sorted out on the resumption on the next lap, as well as switch changes, new strategy implications, all the rest of it, that probably the safety aspect gets put back to the back of your mind as a driver. But in those moments under the red flag, I think it is quite tough, and a lot of credit to them for getting on with the job straight after it as well. So that was a look into the huge crash of Romain Grosjean, but it wasn't the only incident in the Grand Prix. There was another one on the restart, and there were plenty of talking points as well. For more analysis, check it out on F1 TV tomorrow.